It's the media's job to find and be adversarial to the courts. You should be adversarial to government, all branches, not just the executive branch. You should be adversarial to the courts. Use the same energy that you just asked me that question to ask the courts, why are you releasing violent people, dangerous people that Chicago police officers arrest and charge back into these communities to create this environment of lawlessness that we're seeing here? Be adversarial to the courts is my plea to the media gallery this morning. Be adversarial. There are media reports that document what's happening in the courts. Use those as your citations, not the superintendent. Sit in bond court. The way you're sitting here, sit in bond court and see the people being charged with unlawful use of a gun by a felon, aggravated use of a gun by a felon, being released back into these communities the same day they are arrested. That should be a headline in this city, and it's not. So be adversarial to the courts. Again, we're asking you to do your job in the way you do it with other branches of government in this city. It answers the question. It answers the question because every Monday I go through, how many guns we recover. This is a violence issue with guns here. People are being shot by guns in the wrong hands of people who are repeatedly arrested by Chicago police officers. That's the answer to your question. What can Chicago police officers do? They can continue to be brave and courageous, committed and dedicated in arresting violent offenders. My question to you is, ask what the courts can do different. Rather than release violent people back to these communities to create an environment of lawlessness, can the courts hold people in jail who are violent, who have been arrested, who have been charged with murder? Murder. I don't think there's another city in this country releasing people charged with murder back into the community on electronic monitoring. Yes. It is the baseline for policing what we're doing. We are not judge, juror, or jailer. Our democracy set it up that way for a good reason. There should be independence of each of the branches that enforce the law. If we had our druthers, we would keep violent people in jail longer. We would hold them accountable for their violence. That we would not release murderers back into the community on electronic monitoring. That we would hold absconders from the electronic monitoring program more accountable. There's people AWOL from electronic monitoring. We would fund the sheriff much more so that he would have the capacity to manage the electronic monitoring program. We would challenge any and all documents that support releasing violent people. But we're not the media, we're not the jail, we're not the funders for the sheriff. What we can do different is continue to highlight these issues that impact what our effectiveness can be. We can only arrest violent offenders, and we're doing it at the highest level historically in the Chicago Police Department's history. We're on pace to recover 12,000 guns. Every gun recovered is a potential life saved. A potential deadly force encounter with our police officers and these violent people who shot at us last night, who shot at us 35 other times this year. What we can do different is challenge the courts to render Chicago safe by holding violent offenders in jail longer, not releasing murderers back into our community. That's what we can do different.
Are you calling for?
Or fund the sheriff to the capacity to manage it, what he's been asking for. I echo his plea to the funders of the courts, the county. He needs the funding to manage the 3,000 people on electronic monitoring. He has no capacity to manage those people. Many are AWOL. Many don't show up to court. They fail to appear in court, make their court dates. This is not something that I believe can be done behind closed doors. The judges are elected, the prosecutors are elected. This is a plea in the public square to the people of Chicago who elected the people that run the courts. That's why this is not a closed door meeting. We meet and we respectfully disagree. I have high regard for Judge Evans and State Prosecutor Kim Fox. I do have high regard. We disagree, and there should be a natural tension between the courts. There shouldn't be a rubber stamp on what policing want for offenders. There shouldn't be a rubber stamp. I'm not asking for a rubber stamp, but it is unconscionable to release more than 90 people, according to the Chicago Tribune, charged with murder. It's unconscionable. It's just as frustrating that it's not in your headlines, except for the Chicago Tribune. Use that citation, other media sources. Use that citation for your reports about the people charged with murder. Don't use superintendent's quote. Use the citation from another media report that's under the Chicago Tribune is a very ethical paper, by the way. They wouldn't run something in their paper that wouldn't at least have two other sources that convey that it's an accurate report. It has editors, right? So editors signed off on that article written. So you can use that. You can use that article in the Chicago Tribune as your citation for over 90 people charged with murder, released back on electronic monitoring into these very communities. Thank you very much.
A fired up Chicago Police Superintendent there telling the media to please do your jobs when it comes to reporting the violence in Chicago. And he's saying why this is happening because of this open really door policy really in Chicago where a felon gets charged and then on the same day can be released on ankle monitoring. He also said, citing the Chicago Tribune, that 90 people accused there of murder have been released into the general public. So he is saying to the media, please do your jobs. Chicago Tribune that's what the Chicago Police Superintendent has said, and he wants others to do the same thing because every Monday, he comes out there, talks about the violence in Chicago and how it increases in the summer, but nothing ever seems to come from it, and nothing really after the fact. We just see more and more shootings there in Chicago, even after community members say enough is enough. So we'll continue to follow that. We saw that Chicago Police Superintendent very fired up there, more than recent weeks we've seen from that. All right, everyone, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break for some of you. When we come back, we will take you out to the White House. We do have the press secretary there ready and going on this news conference.